In the previous training video, we went in and learned essentially just, how to install Golang, how to get an environment up and running so it works for you. Now, I'm on Windows and I have VS Code open here. So one of the first things that I want to do is I'm going to go to my extensions. I'm going to type in Golang. And as you can see, I already have it installed, but this is the extension you want. And with that, let's learn how to set up our first package. So I'm just going to create a directory on my desktop and I'm going to name it Go Tutorial. And I'm going to go to open folder here. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to click on Go Tutorial. So I have this directory open now, and let me just zoom in here a little bit because I'm on 1080p. So if you're watching it on mobile, hopefully the zoom helps you out a little bit here. Within my directory, I'm going to create a new directory and I'm going to call it tutorial. And then within tutorial, I'm going to create a new directory and I'm going to call it source. So the source directory, I guess like I shouldn't say all the time, but it really depends on like your background per se. But the way that I've been learning Go is that, you have the source directory and this is where all of your packages typically go, but you really don't need to have it here. You could have it in just like the root directory tutorial. It really depends on how many Go programs or files you're going to have. So for example, if you have tutorial and you need another one, you call it source 2. And the reason why is because you need two main programs, and we're going to go over main in a second. But if you need two mains, you're going to want them in separate directories. So that's one example of why you wouldn't want it in the root directory. So I'm here now, and I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it main.go. Now, what is main? The best example that I can give, and if you don't know any C# or you haven't worked with C# or seen C#, this may not help completely, but in C# you have a main function, and that main function is what calls other functions. So for example, let's say you have a main function and then you have two functions to create a resource group in Azure and create a virtual machine in Azure within that resource group. You would create two functions to create the resource group, create the virtual machine, and then you would call those functions from the main function. The main program in Go is kind of similar. So let's go ahead and start writing our first program. Now, the first thing that we want to type in is package. And as you can see, it has some IntelliSense here where it's trying to finish it for us because we're in a main.go. So you have one package and your primary package is the main package. This is where you're essentially kicking off all of the code from. So for example, let's say you have a bunch of different Go files and programs to do, creating resource groups, creating virtual machines, creating environments if you wanted to. You would essentially call all of those from your main package. So I'm going to click this here and I'm going to have my package main. And then the next thing that I'm going to put in is my import. So think of import like, for instance, if you've worked in PowerShell and you're importing or installing modules, or if you've worked in Python, like in the previous course where we went through some Python tutorials where you do an import of a package or a library, that's exactly what this is here. So let's import one of the pre-installed packages, and that's FMT. And FMT allows you to do a few things, but what a lot of people use FMT for is to print messages, for example. And you can add as many as you want here, and there are a bunch of pre-installed libraries and packages. In Go, they essentially call it packages. So this is considered a package, but in other languages, you might hear it as a module or a library. Now that we have our first package imported, we're going to create our first function. And the way you create a function in Go is you type in func, and then whatever the name of it is. So we'll type in main because it's going to be our main function. I'm going to do parentheses here where we would pass in any parameters if we needed to, space, and then curly brackets. Now, remember, put that curly bracket here, like typically in like C#, for example, you might see it like that. Always remember to keep that curly bracket on the line where the function is, or else the compiler will throw a bunch of errors at you. Go expects that first curly bracket to be on the same line as func, or your function. Then now that we have that first function, let's go ahead and kick this off with FMT, because remember, FMT is the library that we're importing, and then we're going to do a print. We're going to do a print ln. We're going to say hello Go learners. Then I'm going to save that. So now that that's saved, I'm going to bring up my terminal in VS Code here, and I'm just going to move the debug console over, and I'm going to do an ls, and we can see that we got to go to tutorial source ls again, and we have our program. Now, how do we run our program? Well, what we do is we type go run, pretty simple, right? Go run, and then our name of our program. So I'm going to click enter here, and as you can see, we got that print out, hello Go learners. Now, we will dive into functions a little bit more and some different FMT methods that you can use like the print, but this is the standard. This is really what the view looks like of when you're setting up any type of Go file for your Go program. And of course, this is very basic, 9 lines of code, but this is really the gist of it. You have a package main, or you can name this, another type of package if you have another main. You have your imports, all the libraries or packages, what they're called in Go, that you're importing. And then you have your functions. Now, the one thing that I do want to point out is you're going to see 99% of the time, you're going to see functions in Golang, and you're not going to see classes. Now, the one thing that I do want to say is that you can actually create classes in Go. The thing is that it's really just like a big no-no almost. It's really just not a best practice because it's a procedural based language. It's not an object oriented based language. So you're not creating classes with objects. You're creating functions, and then all of the different functions you're calling from your main function. So for example, and again, we're going to go over this really in depth, but I'm going to type in main or func, and then I'm going to type in Go learners. Oh, if I can spell learners right, that would be cool. And then I'm going to do FMT print ln hello again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of this print here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this function. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to type in our function, we'll paste it in. So now as you can see, this is our main function, and our main function is going to be what's calling our other functions. And remember how I said in the beginning that it's kind of like C# almost, where you have that main function, then you call your other functions. This is, what I was kind of referring to. So what this is doing is we have this function here that's going to print out hello again. And then we have our main function that's going to call this function. So clear my screen here, and I'm just going to bring this up a bit. Now I'm going to run go run main.go again. And as you can see, the output is hello again. And the reason why the output is hello again is because this function got called right here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you definitely learned something from it. That's obviously the goal of these. If there's some, type of whatever in the video that you're not understanding, or if there's something that I haven't made clear, definitely ping me on the comments, ping me on Twitter, email me, and let me know, and then maybe I can spruce up the video a bit. Thank you so much for watching.